Hi everyone, my name's Catherine and I'm the Assistant Director of Service Insights at the Food Bank of the Southern Tier. I'll be talking to you about the mobile food pantry registration process and client check-in list. I put together this presentation with the help of Jen Kolf, the Client Registration Specialist for the Food Bank, who does a lot of the day-to-day work with our mobile food pantries. So getting right into it, there are two options that clients have to register for the mobile food pantries. They can either call one of our 211 helpline partners, or they can fill out an online registration form on our website, which is www.foodbankst.org/CFD. And the CFD piece is back from the early days of COVID-19 when we were hosting big community food distributions instead of mobile food pantries. So either of those two ways, the online form or calling 211, are valid ways that clients can register, and they will give them a confirmation number to bring to the site. Registration usually starts one business day before the distribution. So if the distribution is on Monday, registration is usually the Friday before that. There are occasional days where we have to switch it around due to staff retreats or holidays, but usually it will be one business day before. And then we typically run registration starting at 8:30 until it's full, or if it doesn't fill, we close it at 1 p.m. We have days where we may run one registration from 8:30 to 11:30 and the other from 1 to 4, assuming that they don't close sooner. The registration schedule is on our website under Find Food, MFP Schedule, and we text and call reminders to clients about when registration is. I will just show you where you can find the Find Food piece. Okay, so if I go to www.foodbankst.org and then I click Find Food, the very first link you'll see is the mobile food pantry schedule. And if you click for the appropriate month, so say I'm looking at May, it will have each of the days, the distribution date, time, location name, and then registration info. So for example, Monday, May 1st, we had a distribution in Endwell, and registration was beginning on Thursday, April 27th. That was due to a staff retreat we had the following day. And it does say the time and how to register. So again, that's on the Find Food page. Okay, so back to the slideshow. So for 211, if you call to register, they will start taking registrations at 8:30. The online form will turn on sometime between 8:26 and 8:30. We can't control the exact time it turns on, but it will be within that window for a registration that starts at 8:30. And we don't want the form to turn on late because then people will be worried when they can't register right at 8:30. So we do have to err a little bit on the side of having it turn on early. We do limit the number of online registrations that are available because they can just come in so much faster than phone registrations. We want to give time for the phone people to get through, but we will reopen the online form later if there are enough spaces left once the 211 helplines have gotten through the phone queue. Clients can register for other households whether or not they are picking up for that household. And there's no limit to the number of households you can register, although you can only pick up for 4 households maximum per vehicle. The 4 household maximum assumes that your vehicle has room for the 4 households. If you're driving a tiny car or even a bigger car, but you have 5 people in there with you and the trunk is already full, the site's only going to be able to provide you with as much food as they can safely fit in there. And you will need a separate confirmation number for each household. So make sure that you register for each household you're picking up for. And then finally, we know that the mobile food pantry process for registration is not perfect, and we are always working on ways to improve it. We do think it reduces the barrier for folks who are volunteering on site since they don't have to use a computer like you did pre-COVID and then get all the clients' information on site. Instead, they can just check them off on a list in most cases. And then we also think it helps the clients because they know they're going to get food if they registered and they don't have to arrive super early to be the first in line. Okay, and then this was just a screenshot of what the CFD registration form page looks like when there's not a registration open right now. So I took a screenshot when it was not an 8:30. It was before 8:30, so registration hadn't opened. So it was telling us that the previous day's registration was closed because we reached the maximum, and it tells me that the next registration opens at 8:30. And then we do provide folks information about how to find pantries near them, or including calling their 211 helpline. So if you go to this website when registration is open, this will be where you find the form that you can fill out. Okay, so a few things that people might not understand about registration. On the phones, people cannot call in before 8:30. If you try to call at 8:27, for any of the Chemung, Steuben, or Schuyler mobile food pantries, you'd get routed to an after-hours 211 helpline based out of Rochester, and they're not going to understand what you're trying to do if you're trying to register. Each call line does have a queue. So if you're the 10th person that calls in, you're going to be talking to someone to register after the 9th person and before the 11th person. But a lot of people are calling at the same time, so it's probably going to take some time to get through. But sometimes you will get lucky and be the first or second person. We do know that sometimes people's phones will end calls if they've been on hold too long. So we are aware that that's an issue, and that's why we do our best to try to offer the online registrations as well, so not 200 people are not calling in all at the same time. But for anyone that does have issues with their phone ending calls, you can always try to register online while you're on hold to see if you got through online first. Or you can have a friend register you. Or if you're still having issues, we recommend trying for a walk-up MFP instead of a drive-through. So the walk-through distributions tend to fill less quickly in a lot of cases than the drive-throughs. And the walk-ups also allow you to choose your own items. So instead of driving your car through, you end up walking through, shopping for the items you want. And that's the difference. So they might be easier to register for. And then clients are also always welcome to go to a food pantry if they have issues registering for the mobile food pantries. There are a lot of great partner agencies across the Southern Tier that are able to serve people based on family size and dietary restrictions. And also many of them are able to serve clients more than once per month. If a client gets through on the phone and the registration is already full, which does happen, 211 will refer them to other resources like pantries or other upcoming mobile food pantries. So the hope is that they aren't being denied food, they're just being shown other resources they can access once this one is full. So some things about the online registration. The form will often close by 8:35. That is 5 minutes after opening in some cases, but that's because we've legitimately already received 100 or 200 registrations over the internet by that point. And we have to limit it to give about half the slots to the phones, because if we left it open longer on the onlines, that would take away spots from people that might have been waiting on hold on the phone since they called in right at 8:30. So we try to juggle those two things of trying to make it easier to register by registering online in a lot of cases, but we also know not everyone has access or is comfortable using the internet. So we also have to offer some phone registrations. And then the other piece I wanted to bring up is that sometimes people ask why we can't just increase the mobile food pantry if more people want to register. So we do increase the size sometimes, but there's a few problems. So one, we can't just take registrations for as many people as want to register. Because we have to pick an amount several days ahead of time so that the warehouse can prepare the load. We could do registration earlier in that case, but it would probably mean more people no-showing or not using their reservation, which then means other people are getting closed out of the distribution and then there's leftover food, so it's just less efficient. Also, at a certain point, we have to send multiple trucks to accommodate enough food, which we might not have available. And then finally, we do have safety or volunteer concerns in some cases if we have a large distribution. If it's too large to handle safely at the site, there could be traffic issues. Clients and volunteers could get stressed out on site. So there are a lot of reasons that we're stuck with mobile food pantries at a certain size, but we have increased many recently to cope with inflation. And so we do our best, but there are some limitations. Okay, so next we wanted to cover the confirmation or check-in list themselves. We will always send you two lists. The first list is going to be numerical order by confirmation number. So that will have the phone registrations listed first in order by registration number, and the online's listed second in order by registration number. The second list is alphabetical order by last name. So we include both of them, but you have to use the numerical list, at least for anyone who doesn't immediately provide their name. I know a lot of times you feel like you know most of the clients on site by name, so it's easier to just look them up that way instead of using their registration number. We've already had clients provide their information when they register, so we already have it in case of food recall and for our reporting purposes. So now all they need to do is get the food and prove that they have a confirmation number. If it's a drive-through, they often have the number written down and they'll hold it up to their window. If it's a walk-through, they might have it with them. In either case, if they provide it to you, you should be able to find it on the list. You don't need to verify that the name matches, just that the number exists. And there's a few reasons that we recommend doing this instead of just using the alphabetical list. It's faster in a lot of cases, especially for a drive-through, if you can just look at the number someone's provided instead of having to have them roll down their window and provide you names. Another reason is that people might feel ashamed of using the mobile food pantries and not want to provide their name on site. There could be a language barrier, in which case it's easier to provide this number on paper instead of trying to communicate folks' names and other information. And then also the clients might be picking up for others and they might not know the exact name it's under. Maybe it's under Susan and they thought they were picking up for her husband, Fred, but it's the same household. So if you look under Fred's name, especially if he has a different last name, you're not going to find it even though the family is registered. But if you look for the confirmation number, you will find it. So lots of ways that can be easier. You are allowed to use the alphabetical list as a reference for anyone that doesn't have their number, which will happen, or if you try to look up their number on the numerical list, but you can't find it. But it shouldn't be your default, and clients shouldn't have to provide their name if they provide a confirmation number. So I just wanted to walk through an example. So we have this example MFP check-in list for May 2023. And so it starts out with the numerical order, like we said, by confirmation number. So here are all of my online registrations, and those are the ones that start with A or some letter, and then they have 5 digits, and they're going in order they all have the same letter starting, and then they go in numerical order. And then there's a little break, and then we have the confirmation numbers that came from the phone registrations. And so those will start, they won't have a letter in front. They'll have 3 numbers and then 5 numbers in the next column. And the 3 numbers are usually going to be the same. So in this case, it's 2, 3, 1, but sometimes they will be different, in which case it goes in order by those and then by that second column after that. And then at the bottom here, it's telling me how many confirmation numbers are listed. It tells me if there are any duplicates, which we'll go through in a minute, what to do with those and how many were loaded for. And then if you serve anyone who didn't register, which we'll also go through later, you're supposed to record the following information. And then you can see we get into another page, which has the alphabetical order by last name. So in this case, it's all the same folks and the same numbers, but it's going in order by their last name and then their first name, and then it has the confirmation numbers. So this might look easier, but you can see there are examples where you might have trouble finding someone. One thing is if their name might have been misspelled in their online registration. So maybe their last name is Good, not Food, but they entered it as Food. And so when you look in the G's, you're not going to find anything here. So you're going to say, oh, it looks like you didn't register. But actually, it's just that their name was entered wrong and they're listed under Food here. Another thing that might happen is maybe Alfred Food is the person that registered, but his wife is coming to pick up the food and she has a different name. So again, she's not going to come up on this list if she provides her name, not her husband's name. So instead, we really recommend looking through. You're just looking, one, to see does someone have a letter before their confirmation number, or is it just numbers? So if it's a letter, you know they're in your onlines, which are first, and then you're just looking in order for the 5 digits. So we'll say that A10019 comes up. So I look for the A, And then I look through here, 1018, I'm getting close. Okay, 1019, that's September alphabet. And so that's easier if they've just provided that number instead of me having to come up to them and say, hey, what's your last name? What's your first name? And make sure that they come up on this list. Now, you'll probably have people that come up and say, oh, I forgot my confirmation number, or they wrote it down wrong. They wrote 2312900, and they're missing the 1 there, so it's not coming up. In that case, you're welcome to say, oh, what's your last name? What's your first name? And find them on the list. And as long as they're on here, you can check them off. But it is really quicker in a lot of cases and more accurate to use this numerical list and just use the alphabetical list as your backup. So as I promised, we're going to talk about some duplicate registrations. So you may see duplicate reservations for someone under the same name. That's because we don't have a way to block duplicate registrations on the online platform. In a lot of cases, this is an accident. They might have hit submit twice, or if they reload their confirmation number, it's going to resubmit and give them another number. Or they might be entering a reservation for another person and they get confused and enter their own information instead. So it looks like they registered for themselves twice, but they actually were registering for 2 separate households. So we will include the duplicate registration on the list just in case. We usually mark it in italics or bold so that you know that this is one that might not be used. If it's not used, you don't need to mark anything. You don't need to worry about it. We'll deal with that when we get the check-in list back. If they did mean to register for 2 households, you can serve them for both those reservations. We just want you to actually provide information about who that duplicate number was for, just like you would, which we go over on the next page, for an unregistered person, assuming there's enough food to serve that person. This way, we can send registration information to them for next time, and we can send out any food recall information to people that receive food accurately. So you can just draw an arrow to the confirmation number that got used and write the information for the person that actually used it. Okay, and then we wanted to talk about unregistered people. So you might have folks that show up and didn't know they needed to register because they didn't need to register in the old pre-COVID days, or maybe they missed registering. Maybe they called the morning of the distribution instead of the day before, or they called the day before, but it was after it filled up. So you can serve them as long as it is 11 o'clock. And so, which means that the distribution is over, and as long as everyone who had a registration number and showed up has been served. We have to avoid a situation where someone who registered shows up at 10:55 because they were told the distribution ran until 11, but then they're told we're out of food because we served a bunch of unregistered folks. So that's what we're trying to avoid in this situation, while still serving as many folks as we can. If you do ever have a day where we did not fill registration, so you'll see on that check-in list where it has the notes at the bottom, maybe it says we're loaded for 200, we registered 190. In that case, you have 10 extra slots, so you could serve 10 unregistered households even before 11, but that's only if we didn't fill registration and it says that on the list. Besides that, if it says we're loaded for 200 and we registered 200, you have to wait until 11 until everyone else has been served to get to the unregistered folks. If you do serve unregistered people, please provide more than just their name, or sometimes people will say, they'll just add, we provided 3 other households with food. That's not enough information. So ideally, you're giving us name, phone number if they have one, mostly for food recall and also to let them know how to register for next time, their town, and then their age breakdown. Children under 18, seniors are 65 or older, adults 18 to 64. We would love if you could get a street address, but that's not a requirement. So at least the name, phone number, town, number, children, adults, and seniors. This way we can add them to the closest MFP reminder list and make sure they get info if there is a recall. And then finally, we wanted to add a note about allergens because that's come up recently. So we did add a disclaimer to our registration website that food at mobile food pantries may include allergens. We tell clients with allergies that they should tell the person checking them in on site, and the site might be able to do something about it, but we don't guarantee it. So for a walk-up, clients are choosing what they want, so they should be able to choose things that don't have allergens. For a drive-through site, if you have the capacity, you can remove items with allergens from the client's boxes. If you don't have the capacity, you do not need to remove them. We warn clients that there might be allergens and that brick and mortar pantries are going to be better equipped to handle dietary restrictions. So do your best, but that's our guidance on this point. So that's the end of the slideshow. We just wanted to mention the allergens piece, as well as talk you through what to do with unregistered people, what information to receive, to get from them, what to do with duplicate registrations. We also wanted to explain why we send you two lists, the numerical and alphabetical list, and why it's really important to use the numerical list as your default. And then we just wanted to talk through some things that people don't always understand about registration. Okay, so that's the end. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Jen or me. Our emails are on the slideshow. And as always, we appreciate everything that you all do. And thank you for taking the time to watch this recording.